Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and this video is all about growing a Protea in a cold greenhouse, which I've done here in Ireland for many years. So let's hear all about it. So you're very welcome to my greenhouse here in Ireland, and in this video I want to share with you some of the tips and ways that I've had success in growing the King Protea in a cold greenhouse here in Ireland. And as you can see, the Protea is at the moment in flower, and we have this flower which is looking quite good, just beginning to go over a little bit now, and we have a second one that is really quite gone over. Only 2 flowers this year, but that's okay. I mean, 2 flowers in less than ideal conditions and growing environment I think is a good result. So let's just go through some of the basics of how I got this plant to grow in the greenhouse and what I did with it. So I guess the first thing we need to talk about is the mix that this Protea is potted in. And we're just moving down the extent of the plant to the pot at the base here, which it is potted in. And this mix is 50% peat, 50% perlite. Now the required pH for a lot of South African plants is on the acidic side. That's why I've used peat, and perlite of course is neutral. The perlite is added to give the plant good drainage. Now you can use horticultural grit instead if you like, but you need to test it to make sure that it's pH neutral, because certainly in Ireland a lot of those that are sold as horticultural grit aren't pH neutral, whereas they're supposed to be. Now Protea roots really don't like disturbance, so whenever potting this plant on, be very careful not to mess with the root ball or break any of the roots, because it will sulk and you'll be very sorry. And this one is in, as we saw there a minute ago, a very large clay pot. And what's happened over time is that the plant has become so big and so kind of top heavy that I've had to stake it, for one, as you can see from the metal stake, but also I've had to plunge the pot into the ground in the greenhouse border and just leave it here 24/7 because it really isn't worth moving. So this King Protea lives in my greenhouse 24/7 in summer and in winter. And in summer, it, as we are in at the moment, it just stays here and I water it when it dries out. In winter it stays in the greenhouse and I don't water it at all. Now, having said that, once the plant first came into bud, what I then started doing was giving it a little water. So the buds come in winter when normally I wouldn't be watering at all, but because I knew the plant had to derive moisture and energy from somewhere, I gave it a little water and it seems to have worked out quite well. I keep the Protea in full sun, of course, because I'm sure it gets a lot of sun where it comes from, and just keep an eye out for certain pests like scale insect it had at one stage, and I had to remove it with isopropyl alcohol. It seems to be over all that now, which is good. And that is the problem with plants that live permanently in the greenhouse. They do tend to attract all this kind of unwanted attention, and you know, you just can't be having that. And what about feeding, I hear you ask? Well, here's the whole thing. You can't give normal fertilizers to fine boss plants in general, and certainly not to a Protea. So I was always scared to feed mine. Now I do believe that there are certain feeds specifically designed for this kind of plant that you can buy, but I don't have it. So mine has never been fed and it seems to be doing okay. So yeah, if I can get my hands on a particular specific feed at some stage in the future, then I guess I'll do that. So I guess you understand from this video that there really isn't a whole lot to growing a Protea in a cold greenhouse. I guess the real trick is less is more. It's not a plant that you want to be fussing over or pampering it. If you water it too much, it will die. You have to only water when it's on the dry, when the soil is completely dry. So for people who do have a tendency to pamper things a little bit too much, perhaps this isn't the plant for you. But of course, if you're interested in South African plants, if you're interested in fine boss, if you're interested in these amazing, wonderful blooms, florist blooms as well. I mean, I see these in the most exotic bouquets sometimes in fancy places. Then if you're interested in all that, then I would highly recommend growing a King Protea. Try and buy the biggest one that you can get because they are slow growing, and yeah, perhaps it'll reward you with wonderful flowers in a few years. I hope so. Okay, and that kind of brings us to the end of this video on growing a Protea in a cold greenhouse. And I just want to say a great big thank you to Nelly from the channel in Sweden, Collection of Unseen Nature, and I will link to Nelly's channel at the end, but it was Nelly who suggested making this video in the first place, and I'm very glad she did. And please go and check out Nelly's channel. She grows a variety of houseplants, magnificent Sansevieria, and she has all her walls painted white, as you're supposed to do if you've got a houseplant channel. The white walls just show off the houseplants to perfection. She also has spiders as well, but like, oh gosh, that's not for me. But anyway, go check out Nelly's channel and I'm sure you'll love it, and I'm sure you'll subscribe to her in a very short time. Thanks very much for watching this video on the Protea, and I'd be interested to hear your comments down below. Check back again for lots more plant, greenhouse, garden, everything to do with plants fun here on this channel, Gardening at Douentza. Bye for now.